Today on the Wise News Network, we're in the small town of Cherryville, North Carolina, located in the western part of North Carolina. Behind me is a building that was built in 1913. It houses the Cherryville Historical Society and once was the original City Hall. Allegedly, there is an attempt to sell the building. There's many rumors and that such going around by many organizations and people on social media. We're here today to find out the exact specifics, talk to some individuals, and see what's going on. We have Pat Sherrill, who is the director of the museum. And Pat, can you tell us the organization and what the difference between the building and the organization is?
Okay, the building is owned by the city of Cherryville. It was given by the Beam Estate. But then you have two organizations other than that. You have the museum, which operates separate from the Cherryville Historical Association. The association is the board. The board of directors handles the money, the depositing, and the making sure that we handle the money legally as to what a nonprofit would do.
When did the board find out about the potential sale of the museum building?
I found out when I saw it on Facebook or the internet somewhere. It was on the internet, and that's all I know, that it was there. And I was very surprised when I saw it because no one had told me anything. You know, I had heard that people were visiting the museum, but everybody told me they were just visiting, you know, and that was it. So.
Now, how long have you been the director?
Since 1995.
The potential sale, it could be turned into a restaurant. How do you feel about a restaurant in here?
Well, I really don't like it. You know, this has been a museum. It's a historic building on the historic register, and I guess I've been here so long, I still think of it as history. You know, and it's I know of people coming in here and going down the fire pole, and a lot of kids have been here to see the museum. I can't imagine it as a restaurant. To me, it's sad. It's a sad state of affairs when something you've seen and cared about for so many years. And so many people have worked on it. We have a list of people on the wall here behind me who have all worked at this museum over the years. And, you know, I can't see it. I'm surprised, and it makes me sad.
Did anyone ask you about the sale or the board's opinion, or how did you find out about the sale?
By word of mouth. No one has contacted me. Brian Dalton did back in, I believe it was December. It may have been in November. Asked me and told me, well, why don't you just buy the building? And I popped off with a number of $25,000. He says, well, you don't have to have much more than that. And I says, well, give me an idea of what kind of money you're talking about.
So you have not really seen any specifics of the potential sale or anything?
No, I sure haven't. The museum had gone in. We added air conditioning to the building because it didn't have air conditioning before. We finished the first floor because it was a dirt floor where the fire department bay was for the year. We consider the building the museum. It was always to be, and it was entrusted to be, and accepted by the city at the time to be the historical museum for the town.
I have called President Al Putnam and asked him would it be okay, and he agreed 100% with what I want to tell you. That building was gave to Cherryville free by a family for the sole purpose of the museum. Now the city of Cherryville's turned around, wanting to sell it, make a profit, and all the profit goes to the city, and the museum has been left out in the cold about moving out of there. In my understanding, they are to give that money to the museum so we can buy another building. Hopefully, O'Leary will sell us another building so we don't have a landlord, somebody to answer to anymore, because over the years, my understanding, the city has let that building go down, and now it's really a lot of money to fix it up. And now they're saying it's too costly for the city, and that's just like buying a house. If you let a house go for 30 years and you don't do anything to it, then all of a sudden you have to pay a lot of money.
Hello, I'm Jermaine with the Wise News Network, and I am here with
Charles Sisk, president of the New Year Shooters.
And Charles says, how long have you been president of the Cherryville New Year Shooters?
1 year.
1 year.
Been going for 75 years.
Wow. And have you guys always met here in downtown Cherryville?
Yes.
Now, allegedly, it's rumored that the museum may be up for sale. Is that what you've heard as well?
That's what I've heard as well.
Okay, and what are your thoughts on that, on this historic museum?
Well, I'll be honest with you, I don't think it ought to be moved anywhere else. I think everything should stay where it is. I really feel like they need to do some work on the maintenance to the building. There's a lot of memorability there that I think if they sell the building and move it away, that a lot of it's going to be destroyed.
All right, Charles, before I let you go, I have to ask you about this exhibit in the museum. Now, it's my understanding that it actually started in the basement. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, that's where it started at, in the basement, and over the years there's a lot of mold. It's down in the basement where it was so wet and damp. And the Cherryville New Year Shooters went in there and brought it upstairs and did a display of a lot of different pictures and monitors. They've got found some reels of some old pictures that Hal Straup had taken, and they are up there now where you can see them on the display. And it's a really, really neat thing, but I guess that would go away if they sell the place.
All right, Carl, and what is your affiliation with the Cherryville New Year Shooters?
I'm vice president going on probably 15 years. I'm not going to sit here and rough any one individual up, but I've spoke to some members on the city council, and they were reluctant to do this, but they're also feeling like the board has forced their hand on this situation, the museum board. And with all things being said, instead of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, I just wish the city and the board could have got together and tried to figure out how to settle this.
Now, if you had it your way, how would you go about this situation?
Well, I think the museum needs to stay where it's at. And there's more buildings up there to do things with. And I don't think this is a power play from Mr. O'Leary or from Vicky, but at some point maybe we're glad he's here. But there's nothing in writing about rent, about what measures are going to be done. There's nothing involving from the city that we can read. And before this deal gets to stamp, I personally think that some time needs to be taken to where we can read something instead of voting and selling and then not having something that is in writing.
Now, I do have to ask you this. Now, it's all alleged, but if the museum were sold in the near future, where does that leave the Cherryville New Year Shooters? What would happen next for you guys?
Well,
I know you have a wonderful exhibit there, so.
Yeah, the group's worked really hard putting a deal together up there, and as they've said, we used to be in the basement, and we've done this, we've done that, and we're proud of our exhibit up there. And then all of a sudden, we finally get out of the basement, and we're getting pounded, because of, like I said, two entities that can't get along.
All right, and lastly, what do you think your past fellow officers for the Cherryville New Year Shooters would have to say about this?
They'd be irate. I mean, these guys, Don, Holmesley, Big Booze, Hal Strap, and a lot of them, and like even Brownie there who's been shooting 70-plus years, I mean, they would be trying to figure out how this could happen would be the word. And, they'd call it like they'd see it. I'm sure it wouldn't be, this clean of a situation because, I mean, it's just, I'm going to tell it like it is. There's just no sense in this.
We're here again at the Cherryville Historical Museum, located on Main Street in Cherryville, North Carolina. And we've been busy the past 2 days developing a story about the Cherryville Historical Museum. We spoke with Brian Dalton, but he declined comment on the situation, and we also tried to get a hold of city officials, and we have not heard back from them. We also reached out to the real estate agent, and she declined comment also. According to off-camera sources, the potential buyer is Cherryville Main Street LLC by Mr. Patrick O'Leary, with a principal office address in Cherryville, but also a principal mailing address in Scottsdale, Arizona. According to Gaston County tax records, Cherryville Main Street LLC owns around 20 downtown properties. Of those, half of those are empty. Also, that is 1/3 of the buildings downtown. And about 50% of the businesses are affected or owned by Cherryville Main Street LLC. This is a developing story. Thank you. I'm Rusty Wise with the Wise News Network. Stay tuned for more.